Rogers TV talking Ohio State football. We bring in Claire Crawford. She is on the ozone.net, and we spoke with Claire last week, had a great conversation. So you're always welcome, Claire. Thanks for joining us.
I love being here. I had a ton of fun. Thank you so much for having me.
No question. So Mike Weber had an outstanding freshman season for Ohio State. Impossible for him to replace Zeke Elliott, but he had almost 1,000 yards rushing and was a prime part of that Ohio State offense. Kind of disappeared late in the season, not due to his fault, but taken out of the game plan to a certain extent. And if you look at any top 5 list of running backs in the Big Ten, Mike Weber placed prominently on all sorts of these preseason lists, but there could be some factors that take him again out of the game plan and maybe spotlight another Ohio State running back with the season opener against Indiana coming up.
I agree. So there are a few things that could be leading into that. So I think the biggest and foremost reason that Mike Weber could be sharing some playing time, especially in the opener against Indiana, is that he has still not been full speed at practice yet. And the coaches have mentioned during the press conference, you can see it during practices, he's still not going 100%. And apparently, according to reports, it's just kind of precautionary. He does have a tight hamstring, according to the reports. So what we're seeing is him just taking it easy. He's still out there practicing, but he's still not going full speed and 100% yet. Again, they've said it's precautionary, and they have said that he is going to be ready for week 1. It does lead me to believe that we will see, as fans, a few other players that really need some miles and some playing time step up in this opener if Mike is indeed still a little ouchy.
There are a few candidates, but there's one who has definitely stood out at camp. Jerome Baker in particular said, wow, I'm really impressed with
J.K. Dobbins. I think all of us are super excited about J.K. Dobbins and what he brings to the table. I think another reason that we might see a little more of J.K. Dobbins is that Demario McCall has been taking reps at H-back with Paris Campbell. So as tight as we know is that depth chart is at running back, they haven't announced who's going to be behind Mike Weber yet. And with Demario now taking reps at H-back with Paris, not sure if that's to build a little depth there at H-back or whether we know that Demario should have some playing time and also should JK. That's another reason that leads me to believe that we're going to see a little bit more out of J.K. Dobbins, possibly in the beginning of the season here. But you hear all kinds of praise coming out of camp from anyone, from players and coaches and the media, saying words like explosive, and he's making one of the best defenses in the country, if not the best defense in the country, look silly at times. And these are not just the second team. This is starters that he's making look silly at points. So it's very encouraging from a fan standpoint, and it's exciting to think that, I'll go out on a limb and say that it's possible that J.K. Dobbins has more yardage, more playing time, and that opener against Indiana than Mike Weber does.
Yeah, and again, getting back to the comments of Jerome Baker in particular, he says, the kid shows up and he's instantly feeling comfortable in the locker room. He's good, nice to be around. He assimilated himself into the team, so he took care of business off the field in regards to being a teammate instantly. And on the field, yeah, he's just a blur. You think you got him, you miss him, he's gone. He's ready to take on big-time defenders physically straight ahead, but he can also make a miss. He's just kind of the complete back who's shown it at practice to this point. Of course, the game situation much different, but when you're playing an Ohio State defense every day in practice, it pretty much prepares you for the season. What I find interesting is that Urban Meyer at Ohio State in particular has relied on one guy. It was Carlos Hyde. It was Zeke Elliott. Mike Weber to a certain extent last year, although that was much to place on a freshman. But if J.K. Dobbins emerges like he does and Mike Weber gets healthy, Demario McCall yeah, they may have the luxury of continuing to work him at H-back because they've got two guys that they can rely on at the primary running back position, and it may be a different type feel for the Ohio State running back rather than having that one stud who just is the workhorse back there, having two guys that can stay fresh and be different types of backs to give the defense a different look.
I agree. And body type wise, Mike Weber and J.K. Dobbins are similarly suited. So they would have a similar skill set, but I really think it's going to be important. I mentioned last time I was on your show with the addition of more tempo in this offense. It's going to be even more important to have fresh legs, to be able to really, and again, with there being so much depth there, they're really going to need to work these guys in early and often. JK not only has been impressive at fall camp, he had an amazing spring. I believe he was the first, I'm not sure if he was the first, to get his black stripe off and be an official member of that Ohio State offense. He had a stupid, crazy high school career that I think everybody was excited about. I want to say, what was it? It's like over 5,000 yards in his high school career. So it's and also broke his leg his senior season. So for him to have made that big of a comeback and to really show everyone how just explosive is the word I'm hearing the most, he is really, really impressive. This is nothing to take away from Mike Weber. We are really not saying that Mike Weber is, obviously he was named the starter. We're not saying that Mike Weber is less than J.K. Dobbins. We're not saying that Mike Weber hasn't grown as a player. We're not saying that Mike Weber hasn't matured a little bit, which is one of the things I was really wanting to see more of out of Mike Weber. And we hear that word maturity a lot, especially coaches. They bring it up a lot. And it's not like the Cheez-It commercials, where they're immature. Maturity includes vision and really expanding your position to be a great pass catcher, to work on vision. And it really is going to be interesting to see how mature JK has been already with locker room stuff and Cheez-It commercial stuff, how well that translates onto the field. And at times, again, we're not pitting these players against each other, but at times we've seen Mike Weber get away with a few personal fouls. I'm sure Michigan and Michigan State fans can remember a few very specific personal fouls that didn't get called on Mike Weber. And that level of maturity needs to also translate onto the field. It could have been a very costly penalty in both situations for Mike Weber and for the Ohio State Buckeyes. So those two things, again, seeing JK play in front of the kind of crowd that now he's going to be in front of 100,000 people, 100,000, 107,000 to be exact. And it's a much different situation than what he's come from before. But on all accounts, it sounds like we should be optimistic.
It's good to know that Urban Meyer is not in the locker room on a regular basis with the white lab coat as in the Cheez-It commercials, testing each player's Cheez-It maturity. I can't really picture that.
Right, telling dad jokes. I can't see that.
Yeah, to your point about J.K. Dobbins, this was the second rated all-purpose back coming out of high school in 2017, sixth rated player out of Texas. Overall, maybe the richest recruiting state in high school football just in this 2017 class. And it's interesting with JK wearing number 2 that a player on the defensive side, number 2 defensive end Chase Young, is drawing rave reviews for his early work as a freshman. Tyquan Lewis in particular calling him a specimen. So good things out of another great recruiting class from Ohio State.